Last time in Wistoria, Wand and Sword, after the power display at the Magic Festa, the next event was the all-student praxis. It's a dungeon exploration and everyone wanted to recruit Will in their team, so Colette got jealous of the girls and snatched Will away by making up that Will already agreed to go shopping with her. Will wanted to buy some item for the praxis, so he agreed and Colette was set to make this date successful, but sadly, Rusty tagged along when he heard Will was going out with Colette. He's just way too close to Will and the third will ruin the date, so Colette was angry and Rusty also wanted to have a chat. So both sends Will away to blacksmith first and after that Colette and Rusty started to fight. By the way, Rusty is a boy. Anyways, on the way, Will meets Lihana and she took Will to a meeting. She planned to form a team with all the top dogs of the school for the dungeon exploration. Everybody here had one thing in common, that they are ambitious, so Will agreed to join. And Colette joined Lihana's team uninvited because she wanted to stick close to Will, and the news of the praxis reached the Flame Emperor Chariot. His assistant was giving out small details because one way or another, other three Magia Vanders had some fault in them, but Chariot was perfect out of all of them. Then Chariot asked him about Light King and he's still out on campaign. As for the students, the praxis race starts and Will wanted to earn 1000 credit anyhow. There's suddenly Wignall sends Will ahead to act as a shield and the guy drops down the cliff. There the Crimson Ant was the first monster they encountered. So Will was ready for a fight because mages are weak in close quarters, but Lihana is a different case. She's a rare mage that specializes in close quarter fight as she comes from family of knights who uses lightning enchantment. She alone took care of that horde. And Will recalls Werkner teaching him many basics about dungeons, and the most useful spell was Search that detects the surroundings. That's how mages always stays one step ahead. But Will couldn't use the spell and Julius saved his but Will knew at this rate they'll kill all the Crimson Ants and got only one ant to kill. Then Wignall took out all the ants in the area and saw Will as nothing but a burden and questions Lihana's judgment for including Will in the team. Lihana clears up Will didn't have time to act but he will show his powers perhaps. But Julius was also on Wignall's side because Will couldn't even use the search spell and collected magic of monsters. All the mages does it with their wands, but since Will doesn't have magic, he has to bring back the evidence to earn credit. So Will makes up to perform well moving forward, but others were just so skilled that Will had no time to act at all, so if this goes on, Will knew he won't earn enough credit score. Then the day went by in the dungeon and Lihana decided to take a rest, but in a place like this, it's so obvious for monsters to attack them, and for that, Wignall creates a wall of flames but it wasn't a real fire, it was illusion magic, but it's still going to work to scare away the monsters. There Lihana asked Will to give out the food to everyone and Wignall stopped Will and told him to put the food down. Because he doesn't want to touch him as elves only allow those they see worthy to touch them. Now that's pretty rude but Wignall is an elf and he only deems Lihana worthy enough for that. Will told Colette to let it go because elves have their own culture, just like dwarfs. Elves came from a different world and had excellent talent as mages and one of the Magia Vander is the Elf Queen. After that Lihana explains their next step will be to hunt down Cerberus, Guardian of Floor 10 to get 110 credit in a single fight, and that is why she made this party of the strongest to hunt down that beast. But away from there a new problem was rising as a headless dude with his companion were making their move, so our group came to the Floor 10 and saw all the monsters were killed. But who got here first? They took a shortcut to get here and Will saw the monster was killed by brute force not magic. Then they arrived at their destination and saw Cerberus was already killed by something and everyone used Search at a wide scale to locate the threat. Search is a vital spell but it isn't powerful enough to detect traps and monsters or mages who cloak themselves, so Will used his beastly sense and saw the threat was right above them. And thanks to him others survived. But Wignall took a critical hit, and then the monster broke off the floor and sends all of them to the deeper floor of the dungeon, but while falling, Will somehow saved Wignall and the destruction effect were heard on other floor. Will and Wignall got to at least deeper floor that goes all way to floor 15. And Shaun and Julius were at surface of floor 11, Lihana was injured and she also realized it's deeper floor where monster is on a different level. And it will be fatal if they don't find others quickly. Then we see Wignall's past. He was also ignored by his own kind because he wasn't skilled, and the Elf Queen did the same to him. Then he woke up from the dream and saw Will kept him safe, but he refused to let Will do first aid, so he took the things to do it himself and Will saw they have a bit of supplies for themselves, including magic items, so they could last 2 days at least, but given the condition it could be less than 24 hours, so they only had 24 hours to act and decided to move out to find others. But Wignall says at school, they were taught to sit still until the rescue team finds them, so Will tells him they won't have that luxury. Because the monster they saw back then will make the rescue team's work difficult, and their workner asked Professor Eliza about the situation. And she told him the monster attack on 8th floor had destroyed their camp, and other professors were brutally killed by someone, so the floor down below 9 could be in the same or worse situation. And their Edward came in to end this praxis and told Workner to follow him below. As for Will and Wignall, Wignall was nervous and was using search, so Will asked him not to. It'll just make him tired, so Wignall asked him why was he so chilled in this situation, so Will explains that search works in a small radius compared to what he could sense. So he asked Wignall to use search only when they get out of the area Will had sensed, to keep their fight to a bare minimum. Wignall still couldn't see the reason for his calmness. And Will told him he had to earn credit by defeating monsters, so he learned many things about dungeon and many times he was lost and used the knowledge he had to come back. Their Kiki warned them of the monster swarm, Jergiza. It was worth 8 credit score, and Wignall took out one who attacked him, but when he saw back at Will, he was fighting and slicing off 3 Jergiza alone, with only the knowledge he gained from books. There he used illusion magic to hide from the monster. But the monster had no eyes and Will stepped in and saved his life. In comparison to him, Wignall saw how far below he was, and was regarded as a laggard even among his own kind. But before the flashback begins, our episode 9 ends, but stay tuned to watch another episode of Wistoria. Until then, subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon to never miss out on any of my updates, so take care, Tilda.